For people with disabilities, access to education and support can be a struggle. Preconceived notions about the abilities one should have are sometimes hard to break through. In the Peel District School Board, there are many things in place to help students with different abilities succeed in the classroom. Some examples of students who may receive support are students with ASD, developmental disabilities, physical or mental disabilities, emotional and behavioral challenges, and gifted students. Every school has a resource team consisting of a psychoeducational consultant, social worker, speech-language pathologist, resource teacher, and special education teachers. Schools can also provide interpreters when needed, including sign language interpreters. Children who have an exceptionality as recognized by the board go through a process called IPRC, or Identification Placement Review Committee. This determines the type of support they might need, whether it be a contained class, a regular class with support, or a regular class with indirect support. This decision is reviewed annually to determine whether the placement should continue or consider being changed. There is a section in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that protects people with disabilities. It says, "Every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination, and in particular without discrimination based on race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability." Ontario has enacted the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or the AODA. The AODA aims to identify, remove, and prevent barriers for people with disabilities. This became law on June 13th of 2005, and it applies to all levels of government, nonprofits, and private sector businesses in Ontario. It includes requirements specific to an organization's size or type. There are other sections of law that protect people with disabilities as well. One example is the Ontario Human Rights Code. The Ontario Human Rights Code guarantees the right to equal treatment in education without discrimination based on grounds of disability. Education providers have a duty to accommodate students up to the point of undue hardship. There is also the Education Act. This details that the Ministry of Education is responsible for setting up a process for identifying and accommodating disability-related needs in all publicly funded schools. The ministry must make sure that all pupils who need them can access special education programs or services without payment. They are required under the AODA to complete a yearly accessibility plan that addresses identification, removal, and prevention of barriers for people with disabilities. All of these things are great in theory, however they don't always work. In April of 2014, the Fee family began a fight to get their son with autism's service dog into his school classroom. The family claims that his service dog is essential to his education and that the dog assists him in regulating his behavior, thus increasing the amount of independence that Kenner can have. In August of this year, the Human Rights Tribunal decision was that Kenner Fee cannot have his service dog in his classroom. This decision will cause a great hindrance to Kenner obtaining the education he is legally entitled to. Cases like this should not occur with all of the protection in the law for people with disabilities. The Human Rights Tribunal should have determined that Kenner's service dog is necessary and allowed as an accommodation for his education, just as they would determine that a wheelchair is a necessary accommodation for someone who can't walk. These laws are not perfect. People with disabilities have to face discrimination in the world every day, but they should be able to obtain an education equal to anyone else's without worrying about discrimination.